Our key verse for today as we jump in, it's going to be out of Philippians chapter 4. It's going to be verses 6 and 7. I'll go ahead and read it for you real quick. It says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." So let's pray as we get started. God, we come before you, and we are just grateful and thankful to be able to come into your house, God, to be able to learn from your word, God, to open up your word. It is alive, God. It can speak to us. So, Jesus, we say, speak to us. Give us ears to hear. Let our spirits be open to hear from you individually what you would be saying to us today through your word. And, God, we will give you all the glory, and we will give you all the honor. In Jesus' name, amen. This past weekend, so about a week ago, my family and I, we went on a camping trip. I like to go camping. I like to be outdoors. A lot of times I work indoors. I'm on a computer and all that sort of stuff. So when I get the opportunity to get away from all of that and just get into the outdoors, I love it. It's great. And when I say we go camping, we go tent camping, just to clarify. I know some people go glamping. Not exactly. That's not what we do. Probably if I had an RV, I probably would, but I don't. So we tent camp. So anyways, we went camping this past weekend. We were going to this new place, and I live up in Northern California, and so a common place that we might go camping is up in Lake Tahoe. It's beautiful, it's big, there's all sorts of spots that you can go to, and it's great. But I'd heard about this little place that was a little off the beaten path, and I started to check it out online a little bit. I ran into a guy who actually knew about it, and he was like, "Oh no, it's really good. You should really check it out." So I determined, okay, we're going to go to this new spot. I think it's going to be pretty cool. It's probably going to be a little uncomfortable on some levels. For example, this might be TMI, but here we go anyways. There's not like showers, like some campgrounds, you take quarters and you can go like drop in some quarters to use the showers. No showers. It's that much off the beaten path. And the bathrooms, technically they're bathrooms, but they're more like outhouses. So that's the full picture. So it's definitely a little off the beaten track. It's on the way, this new campground, it's on the way towards South Lake Tahoe, which is a place that we've been to many, many times. Love it, enjoy it. It's a place that I've been there enough times that I can drive there and not have to like pull up maps and follow the little arrow or listen on the thing to like turn left in 300 feet. I don't need any of that. I've been there. I know the roads, know the path, and I'm super comfortable doing it. I've done it enough times that it's one of those things where you can be, you're like going on a road trip, and if you've been there enough times, you have the radio turned up, you're having a conversation, you're eating a snack, you're yelling at the kids in the back. You're doing all of these things, like barely even paying attention to the road, supposedly. Anyone else ever done that? And then you have like the extreme, I think, I don't know, I know I've done this before, just like more on like local commutes or something, like coming home for work or something like that, where you're like, so in a different place, like you pull up into the driveway and you're like, I don't remember any of that drive. Has anyone else ever done that? And it just speaks to this, like there is this level of comfort that you have with the path that you're on. And because you've done that path enough times, you know all of the turns and the tweaks, you have the landmarks, you have all the things, it allows you to just be comfortable, and you're doing all these other things. But when you're going to a new place, you kind of lose that. So we're going to this new place, haven't gone there, off the beaten track. So we get to the place where I'm like, okay, I know it's going to be coming up. I turn on the maps, on the phone, put it up on the dash so I can kind of like see it. Because these mountain roads, you're going to have to make a left in, 2.3 miles. But mountain roads, it's not like they have big signs. It's just this little, like a little tiny thing, or it's like not even a sign. You just have to kind of know where to turn. So I start to like pay attention a little bit closer. The conversation's dying down a little bit because I'm trying to make sure we hit the right road. I finally get to the spot. Okay, I'm like, okay, this is it. Turn left. And I'm like, yeah, sure enough, there's like barely a sign. If you don't know this is here, you don't even know it's here. Turn left onto the road, and we start to venture off into this more like off the beaten track place. And as we start to drive, you kind of, all the things that I was expecting to happen started to happen. One, we like lose cell phone service. Which if you're on using like a maps thing, it's usually good, like it loads it once. But then if your service is gone, like you're not getting rerouting or something like that, where it's like, oh, you turn left in the wrong spot, and then they'll like reroute you back around. Like Nope, you got to just kind of get it right. You're like, because you have no cell service, that's how it's going to be. So we get onto this road. The cell service kind of goes out. We're kind of just on GPS mode now. The road's starting to get a little bit smaller. It's getting a little bit tighter. You know, the type of road where when two cars come, like one car has to kind of like get on the shoulder a little bit and let everyone go by, and you kind of like have to play nice with everyone. So the roads are getting a little bit like that. There's cliffs, so you're kind of like, there's no more guardrails. It's just like, yeah, you don't want to fall off that. That would be bad. Like make sure you stay on the road. All of that sort of stuff is starting to happen. And what you start to notice is like the music is like no longer like loud. Like, is it even on anymore? Who knows? You can't even hear it because you're like super focused, right? And you're trying to just pay attention to everything. I have the map thing up. I can see that we're on the right path. Everyone's paying attention just because it's like, what is this like single road thing? It's off the beaten path. There was fires that went through that area like maybe last year, the year before. So you're kind of like at one point you're going through like a place where it's just like all burned down. And you're like, this is weird. It's like not exactly like comforting. And the place we're heading towards, it's in one of the wilderness where it's located. It's called Desolation Wilderness. So it's not exactly the most inviting name, but it's beautiful. Don't let the name scare you off. All that being said, all of the comforts, all of the like carefree conversation, singing songs, you're like everyone's like, the car karaoke style thing, playing Disney or whatever, that's not happening anymore. If the music's on, you don't even hear it because you're focused. It's getting quiet. My wife, Krista, she like being next to Cliff, she's just like, I don't even want to know. Her head's down, she's covering her eyes. Like her legs starting to shake, it's like getting all nervous about it. Like, can it just be over? Can we get past this part? The kids are like paying closer attention. They're not fighting anymore, which is great. All these things are happening, and it's funny how all of the attention just started to shift into one direction. Something was real, like this thing was totally capturing everyone's attention. And as we started to make it, one other thing I noticed, there's just kind of funny. I have like the Google map thing up right here, right? It tells you like you're going to be there in 10 minutes or whatever, right? And you see a long blue line still ahead. And for whatever reason, like when you're going around like all these different turns, you're kind of like, is this the turn? Is this where it's at? Is this it? Like, no, it says we're 10 minutes away. I don't know like why there's this anticipation of like, is it there? Is it like, anyways, maybe you haven't experienced that, but there's this thing where like when you're wanting to get somewhere, you're like off the normal path, you're just checking so much more often, Like, is this it? Kind of like, oh, wait, did I miss it? Nope, we still got 13 miles. Okay. Like we're still good. And I wonder if you've ever experienced that as well. It might be the common part of like even driving to church this morning, you get here really quick, you're making plans for lunch afterwards, you're yelling at the kids, telling them to put their shoes back on, you're trying to figure out what you're going to do in the afternoon. Are we going to meet a family? No, we're going to the friend's house. Oh, okay, well, make sure, stop, hey, get your shoes back on. Don't do that. You're yelling, all this stuff, and somehow magically you pulled up into the parking lot and you're like, oh, we're here for church. Like, because you've done it enough times, you're just comfortable with the path. But when you go somewhere new, it changes things. It puts you in this completely different dynamic. I don't know, maybe like, let's say you bought some tickets, you're going to go to like a concert or something like that. It's a new venue. You haven't been there before. You look it up. You put it up in your mapping software. It tells you, okay, it's going to take 45 minutes to get there. You've never been there before. So on your drive there, you follow the maps. You're intense. You're paying close attention to everything. And you get there, and it took 45 minutes to get there. You go to the concert, you love it, you drive home, you follow maps again because it's still kind of new, but you followed it home, and you're like, oh, that was a breeze. Took you 45 minutes to get home, just like Google Maps said. And the weird thing is it felt like it took an hour and a half to get there, and then it felt like it only took 30 minutes to get home. Like, it actually took like the same amount of time both ways, but how our attention was being grabbed and the focus that was being pulled in, the tension that was being created changes our perspective, and it shifts what we're dealing with and what's going on around us. And I have a feeling that maybe you, like me, I experience those sorts of things not just when I'm driving somewhere or not just when I'm going somewhere new. It might be that way. I start to feel those things when we're dealing with new things in life, a new season in life. It might be, you're a young family and you're about to have your first kid, or you're planning to have kids, and you're like, okay, we're going from no kids to a child. This changes everything, right? You have like the registry list that has everything ever, because you're like, it's the first, like, you think you need everything. And so you're just doing all this stuff. It has all of your attention. You're asking for everything. You buy all this stuff because you're about to go into this new season, and you're focused. It has you grabbed in. Or maybe you've already had some kids, or you're about to go from 2 to 3 kids. So you're about to go from like man-to-man to defense to like more of a zone defense. You're like, there's 3 of them, only 2 of us. Our plans have to change here. How we did this before is not going to work for how we're doing it now. By the 3rd kid, you don't care about the clothes. You're like, whatever, they're fine. They can share that one. Like, hand-me-downs are great. Like, they just don't even need that. You're like, it's funny how things shift. Why? Because you got a little comfortable. You've done it a few times now. You know the ropes. You're not concerned about it. But it could be some other seasons in life. It could be like, man, you're about to start a new job. You actually got the job. Praise God. And you're like, what do I do? I'm a little nervous here because like I got the job, but I don't know if I'm like really cut out for this actually. Because maybe, like you might have like fluffed up your resume a little bit. Anyone ever done that? It's a common thing. You fluffed your resume a little bit, then you got the job and you're like, oh, shoot. Like you're very focused now. You're going into this new thing like, okay, I need to make sure I get everything right. Everything's pulled in. Things are slowing down. You went to training for 2 hours. That training felt like 6 hours, and you don't even remember half of what they said. And you're like, oh, man, like you just feel it different. Or it could be that maybe you lost a job, and now you're in the season of like, man, I had a job. Things were going okay, but now I don't have a job, and I don't know what to do. And I'm in this tension, I'm in this place, and I'm trying to find a new job, and I've been looking for 2 days. Those 2 days have felt like 3 weeks, and nobody's gotten back to me yet. The world has just slowed down. Time has slowed down. The tension has slowed down, and you're feeling that anxiousness, that the worry, the concern, all of that stuff is starting to set in. These are all just different areas where we can begin to feel it in our own lives. We get stretched in our own lives in all of these areas. And it could be so many other things. We could go around and I know there's areas in each and every one of our lives, and just, what is it in yours? Like, oh, is it finances? It's finances here. What is it in yours? Oh, it's a marriage ship. It's a relationship thing. That's the thing right now that's just has tension, has the anxiety, everything slows down around it. It's not comfortable. It brings worry, right? It could just be your future. It could be like, I don't know what to do next. I'm kind of lost. I don't know what the next thing is. It could be on and on and on and on, whatever that thing might be for you. What I know is that we all live in tension. We all live in this area of being stretched in different ways in our lives, and we feel it. And so then it becomes a matter of like, okay, I'm feeling this tension. I'm feeling this stretch that I'm in, and it's uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good. I don't like it. It's hard. It's scary. And it makes me think like, okay, God, but like, God, I'm a Christian. Like, I thought things are supposed to go easier now, right? Like, I thought it was supposed to, like, just magically start working. So then the question is, like, God, why do you allow us to go through these things? Why are you allowing me to go through this stretching period, this uncomfortableness? And there's a reason for it. And we have to look to God for it. And a couple of these reasons why, it's because it's in the stretching that we actually grow. It's in the stretching that our character is actually developed. Turns out you don't grow a lot on the mountaintop. Turns out you grow in the valley, going through it, working through it. And praise God, God is with us. One of my favorite verses, just because I think it's like a baller move by God, is Psalms 23, where he says, though you may walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil. And then he says that he'll prepare a table in the presence of your enemies. And that's just like if you just stop and think about that for a second, like you have enemies trying to get at you, and God's like, wait, hold up. We're going to sit down and eat. You can't do anything. We're just going to chill right now and eat because like that's important. And then you could just like, these things that are attacking you, or these things that are stretching you, these things that are making you uncomfortable, God's like, don't worry, I got you. I'm with you. I'll protect you. I'm going to walk you with you through this. Let's sit down and let's grab a bite. Like, kick your feet up for a second. We're going to eat. They can watch because they can't touch you. I'm with you. It's just a gangster thing. I think God's cool for doing that. Why does God allow it? Because it's how God shapes us. And we see this like Isaiah says it in this way, that we are the clay and God is the potter, right? And you put the clay on the wheel, and God shapes us and forms us. Why does he allow these things to happen? Because it's in those moments that we are actually being shaped by God, to be made in his image as we ought to be as Christians, being Christ-like, looking like him. It's in the stretching that we develop into the fullness that God has for us. And it's in the stretch that our capacity increases. It's our capacity, it could be anything, your capacity to love, your capacity to give, to be generous, your capacity to serve, your capacity to lead, your capacity to be a husband, to be a wife, to be a father, to be a boss on the job, your capacity to be a greater employee to the boss that you work for. Your capacity increases when we go through the stretching and we let God form us, when we stay on the wheel. The joke is that, clay does not have legs. When a pottery person, whatever those people are called, I don't know what they're called, I guess. When they put the clay on the wheel, the clay cannot run off, right? Like, it's just kind of there. It's plopped there, and you're done. We have legs. We get put on the wheel, and God begins to shape us. And sometimes it's like, I don't like that how that feels. I'm going to get off. Thank you. I'll skip that for now because that doesn't feel nice. I don't really like that. We have free will, and we sometimes take advantage of that, and we take ourselves off of that wheel. What we know is that the increase in your life is found in the stretch. And I think we could all agree, we all know we need and we want increase in our life. It could be increase in your faith, increase in your relationship with God, increase in your marriage, increase in your business, increase with your family, increase for your future. We all want increase. That's what God has for us, but it comes through the stretching. It comes through the uncomfortableness. So why does it matter? Why do we do this? What is the point of this? It matters because if we don't grow, if we don't stretch, and if we don't live, if we do this without God's peace, we do it in our own anxiousness. We do it in our own strength. We do it out of our own might. Why does it matter? Because if we don't let God develop us in the stretching, we do it on our own. And what does that lead to? Well, if we go back to our verse, and we just want to maybe give a little bit of definition or a few other words to paint a broader picture on the word anxious, which it starts with, do not be anxious. That was the beginning of the verse, right? Anxious, experiencing worry, having an uneasiness, a nervousness, something that you're uncertain about. Isn't uncertainty just the worst sometimes? You're like, just tell me. I just want to know. Like, if it's terrible, tell me that it's terrible. And you're like, or tell me that it's good. I don't care, but just tell me. Like, not knowing is the worst sometimes. But sometimes we live in a place of just uncertainty that you're not going to know right now. You can't know right now. It's out of your control to know right now. So if we don't embrace what God is doing in us, we end up living and carrying all of the weight of what comes with that. All the weight of that anxiousness, all the weight of that worry, all the weight of that uncertainty, that over time can develop into an anxiety. Over time can develop into a broader just depression. Over time it develops into this heavy weight that we're carrying around because we haven't stayed on the wheel. We haven't let God develop us in it. So what do we do when we're in this situation? What do you do with the situation that you're in currently? The situation where you're being stretched, the thing where you're feeling uncertainty, the thing where you're feeling the worry, where you're feeling the anxiousness. What do you do with it? How do we do this? Well, let's go back and we're going to look at what Paul says in Philippians 4. I'm going to give a little bit of context real quick. So this is Paul, and he's writing from prison, an uncomfortable place. He's writing from prison to a group of first century Christians in Philippi. Now, Philippi is in a very strong Roman colony. And what that means is that the Christians in that colony in Philippi were not welcomed. This was not a comfortable place. This was not like, oh yeah, Bob the Christian, he's got a great bagel shop on the corner. Make sure you check it out afterwards. And this was not a community thing. because as Christians, they were no longer going through the normal things. They broke the tradition there. They weren't worshiping the local gods, going through the local traditions. So they were actually they were persecuted. They were not welcome. This was not a comfortable thing for the people in Philippi. So this is Paul writing to these people who are uncomfortable, writing to these people who are living in the stretch of this doesn't feel good. I don't like it. I'm following God, but we're persecuted. We're not welcomed, and just feeling uneasy, feeling the anxiousness of it. So here, Paul writing to them, this is where he comes in and says, do not, and also I'll read the verse one more time, Philippians 4, 6, and 7, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. So what do we do when we're in the stretch? We're going to go through this verse and pull out a few things that are going to help us identify how we actually grow in this, how we get through this, and how we see the best that God has for us as we walk through it. So number one, first thing, what do you do when you're in the stretch in your life? First thing, number one, respond in prayer. So at the top of that verse, in verse number 6, he starts off, he says, but in everything by prayer. Prayer is the first thing. And I know if you're at a church service this morning, you have heard about prayer. You have some idea about prayer. Even if you've never prayed before, you've heard of the concept. And I just want to remind you or tell you a few things. One, prayer is not some old, stale religious activity of just going through the motions. Of just I think you're supposed to pray, right? I'm guilty. We've done this. I'm guilty of this. Even things like in my own family, there's been plenty of times where it's we're going to pray for the food. God bless the food. All right. This was not this was way more of a religious kind of going through the motions than actually thanking God for the food. There's nothing wrong with the words, but the heart just truly was not behind it. It was more just going through the motions. And I think we've all had this thing where we have a tendency sometimes to fall into just going through the motions with prayer. And I want to remind you that is not what prayer is. Prayer is not this old static thing of just going through the motions. Prayer is the language of faith. Prayer is what stirs you. Prayer is this thing that gets you going. Prayer is the thing that connects us to the supernatural, what gets us beyond ourselves. God, I need you. And it starts to get us out of this mode and into what God has for us. It gets us from the natural into the supernatural. Prayer brings proximity. And I would say this is the biggest thing I want to focus on in terms of prayer today. Prayer brings proximity. And when we get close to God, when we're close to God, it begins to unlock the perspective and the power that God has for our life. And that's what we need. Like I said, we've all gone through the motions where we're I prayed, but you're just going through the motions. The heart isn't there. The proximity wasn't actually there. When we begin to really just pray and talk to God, honestly, in a real way, and just being real, being honest, and you don't have to fake it. You don't go all old English, thou Lord saith unto me, or something I don't know, whatever it is in your head. If Pastor Steve was standing next to you and all of a sudden you're oh, I need to pray different now. I feel the pressure's on, and you start praying different, you're doing it wrong. Prayer is just talking to God, being honest with him. And besides, you're talking to God. What do you think? Are we fooling him? He's oh, wow, that was a really impressive prayer you got there. You really nailed it, bud. No, God's what are you doing? Why are you pretending? Why are you acting like that? Just be normal. And as Christians, and I would say even I'll take the opportunity right now as a Christian in Western civilization and in all that is the culture now, let's be helpful. Don't make Christians weird. Don't make prayer weird. Be normal. It's okay to be normal. Just be honest with God. Be real with God. Prayer should be our first resort, or should be our first response, not our last resort. And how many times, again, I've been a Christian a long time, but I also know that, man, that has been something that I have done for sure. That it just turns out my prayer life seems to really ramp up when things are kind of tough. and I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. I really need God to come through. All of a sudden, my prayer life is really ramped up. And then if everything seems like it's going like, man, things are going great, like prayer life just kind of like evened out a little bit, and it's because I'm not letting prayer be my first response, whether it be, God, just thank you for what you've done, or God, I need you in this, or God, a request, or even supplications with thanksgiving, like the verse says. But letting prayer be our first response. Here's the thing. When you pray consistently, key word here, consistently, I want you, we have to develop a lifestyle and a rhythm of prayer. Because when you pray consistently and you pray authentically and you're real with God, He loves it. He loves it, and it brings you close to Him. That's where the proximity is found. And when you get in proximity with someone, that's when you really get to know them, right? It's the old everyone knows who Michael Jordan is. Probably nobody in this room actually knows Michael Jordan, right? That type of thing. Just because you know about him doesn't mean you know him. Let prayer and let proximity be key in your life. Number 2, what do you do when you're in the stretch? You live in peace. So same verse, Philippians 4, verse number 7. It says, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, and will guard your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus. The thing we need to understand here is that the primary battleground of where our peace is fought for starts up here. It's why if we go back to the beginning of the verse, he's talking about don't be anxious. Anxious, that goes back to up here, right? That's the thoughts that are going through your head. That's the worry, the fear, the concern, the uncertainty, all that's running through your head. And when we don't manage that well, when we don't have the Holy Spirit helping us in that area, it goes from our thoughts and begins to get into our spirit, right? So understanding first, peace starts up here. That's why it starts with do not be anxious. But if we go to the verse after, Philippians 4, chapter 4, verse 8, right after he finished the part about he will guard your heart and mind in Christ Jesus, very next verse, finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think on these things. It goes back to your thoughts. He started with your thoughts. He tells us how we engage it properly, and then he goes back to our thoughts because that's where the battle happens. In Isaiah chapter 26, verse number 3, it says, you will keep in perfect peace all who trust in you, talking about God, all whose thoughts are fixed on you. Your peace is connected to your thoughts. And God's peace, don't we all need it, surpasses our understanding. And that's the crux of this whole thing. We have to engage in the stretch, in the uncomfortableness, knowing that we can still have peace beyond the understanding of it. Beyond the uncertainty, you can have peace. Beyond the worry, you can have peace. Beyond the anxiousness of it, you can have God's peace. We can have peace in spite of our understanding of the circumstance, not in ignorance to it. And here's what I mean, and I say guilty of this, have totally done this. I have tried to become reliant on my own version of peace, which sometimes just means you ignore the thing. Like if I ignore it, pretend like it's not there, it's like we went all the way back to like being 3, and like, let's play hide and seek. Like if I can't see him, they can't see me, right? And we say, oh, that's so childish. Who would do that? I think we do that. I think we do that in our own lives. I know I've done it, but that's not real peace. And sometimes I've convinced myself, maybe you've convinced yourself, that like, no, it's okay. It's okay. Like I have peace, but it's really just something you're trying to manufacture and hold together all on your own. And you're not actually engaging in real peace because you're trying to play ignorant to what the actual issue is. Why? Because it's scary, right? Because it's that uncertainty wants to creep back in and the anxiousness, and it seems scary, but it's because it's this paradox of like you cannot do it on your own. The only way to experience God's peace is to engage in the thing that will take you out of your own. That's the only way we get it. It's a paradox in that sense. I want God's peace. Do you? Because if you do, you're going to have to get outside of what is your peace that you can produce. And that's scary when you're trying to do that for the first time. When you're going down a new path, down a new road you haven't been down, right? It can be scary to do that. But that's how we actually experience God's peace. And number 3, what do we do and how do we engage? What do we do when we're in the stretch? We walk by his grace. Paul, in a different verse, Paul was going through this own thing. I mentioned when he wrote the letter to the Philippians, he was in prison. Here's a different scenario where Paul also still uncomfortable, still in a place of like not liking where he's at. He's dealing with this thorn in his flesh. And he prays and he asks God, like, hey, God, like, this is uncomfortable. It hurts. I don't like this. Could you take this away, please? Like, can you make this go away? Like, I'm just really not a fan. It's kind of slowing me down. I don't like it. And God responds. God talks to him. And God says in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9, he says, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. Paul now responds to Jesus and says, therefore, I will boast all the more gladly in my weakness, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. And here's the thing with this. The grace of God is the empowerment that enables us to go beyond our own ability, that enables us to get past our definition of peace and truly walk into God's fullness of peace that he has for us. When you're in the stretch of your life, you're not meant to do it in your own strength. But we often default that way. God doesn't ask you to do it in your own strength. In fact, his grace is his power. That's what he said in that verse. His grace is his power. When we walk in Jesus' power, we're walking in his grace. We can do it in his strength. It's not ours, it's his. So I think it's actually pretty neat if we look at what Paul did here. Even in this circumstance, he took himself through that same process. He's in an uncomfortable place. He doesn't like this thing. It's uncomfortable. It's hurting him. It's painful. And he says, God, can you make this go away? Like, I'm in this, you're stretching me here, and I don't like it, and it hurts. So what does he do? He prays. That was number 1, right? He talks to God. God, here I am. I'm honest with you, man. This hurts. Can you please just take this away? That's an honest prayer, isn't it? And then God answers him. And God says, don't worry, I got you. My grace has got you. When you're weak, then my grace will be sufficient. Then my strength will be made known in your life. Like, I got you. Paul's like, okay, I'm going to walk in obedience to that. I'm going to receive what God's saying here. And as he does that, we see in verse 10, right after 2 Corinthians 12:9, was God saying, my grace is sufficient. Verse 10, the very next verse, we see Paul saying, for when I am weak, then I am strong. So he got into prayer. He got into proximity with God. As he got into proximity with God, his perspective shifted, right? And he said, okay, God, you got this. You see it from a different way. And he aligned himself with God's perspective. He embraced God's grace and his power to do it. And then he stood there just a verse later saying, okay, cool, I'm in then. When I'm weak, then I am strong. And it is only somebody who is in a place of experiencing God's peace can you actually say, when I'm weak, then I'm strong. Like, I'm on that. Like, because it's counterintuitive. It does not make sense, right? Because it's a kingdom principle. It is not of our world's principles. And that's what we have access to. So when we're going through the stretching, the 3 things are, quickly, we respond to God in prayer, we live in peace, and we walk by his grace. If I could say it in one way, I'd say an active prayer life brings proximity to God. Proximity to God leads to the peace of God, and the peace of God enables you to walk with confidence in the grace of God. And that's what God has for us, and that's what I need. And I think that's what you need. And I think as believers, it's something that God offers that is beyond what we could ever produce on our own.